With My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic becoming a success and attracting an unexpected audience in the form of teenage to adult males and females, it seemed inevitable that a second season to the show would be on its way. I mean, a show about colorful ponies attracting an unexpected demographic and showing signs of becoming a phenomenon in pop culture? There had to be more to the show than just one season, right? Well, in September 2011, a few months after the main six's shenanigans at the Grand Galloping Gala, a second season came into fruition and brought audiences back to Equestria for more adventures. When I first got into the show, it was late 2011, meaning I got into the show when Season 2 was going on, and given all that we got afterwards with later seasons, I didn't really come in late when getting into this cartoon. So that meant there was still so much more to enjoy in the years to follow. And looking back on this season, I have a lot of appreciation for what it had done. It took the concepts, characters, and setting that we're familiar with from Season 1 and actually expanded on it with the many episodes we received, ranging from new opportunities with storytelling, character development, emotional drama, and new characters that made spectacular debuts with whichever episode they first appeared in. This season really was awesome. Not only that, but we were given a lot more songs, many of which, like Winter Wrap-Up and At the Gala, were so much fun and helped certain episodes become some of my favorites. And that is where my top 10 Season 2 episodes list comes into play. Now, granted, there were some episodes that did not hit their mark on me, and there were a small few that actually made me cringe, but this is not about those. Like the top 10 Season 1 list, this is about the episodes that had the most positive impact on me. This list was actually really tough, considering Season 2 had a lot of great episodes, and the ones I've chosen were difficult to arrange at first, given how they all have strong reasons for being here, but after much thinking and deliberation, I've managed to put them all together. So without further ado, let's get started. Here are my top 10 favorite Season 2 episodes of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. Number 10. Babycakes. Kicking off this list is an episode that I found adorable, really fun, and pretty relatable if you're in a similar situation to what happens to Pinkie Pie here. This episode features Pinkie Pie getting the opportunity to babysit Mr. and Mrs. Cake's twin foals, Pound and Pumpkin Cake, while the parents are away on an important errand. With how hyper and childish Pinkie Pie is most of the time, this episode brings some character development for her, with how she learns that taking care of infants is a lot more work than she initially perceived. The moral of responsibility when looking after kids is what this episode tends to focus on, and Pinkie learns this the hard way throughout, ranging from moments where the twins' antics cause some problems for her, and when Twilight at one point implies that Pinkie's not capable of doing this job. This conflict makes Pinkie Pie very easy to sympathize with, which is another one of the episode's biggest strengths. The story's presented in a way that further fleshes her out and makes her more relatable. She's trying to prove that she can be responsible with the twins, and while at one point she succumbs to the pressure of the job, things work out in the end and the twins display a strong bond with her, to the point where they usher out her name at the episode's end. It's also very sweet to see Pinkie play with the twins near the beginning of the episode. It goes to show that she's great with kids, and after the lessons she learned in this episode, she might as well be on her way to getting even better with them. Trust me, Pound and Pumpkin Cake, you're in for a bright future with this party pony. Number 9. Friend Indeed. Here's another episode that helped develop Pinkie Pie's character, as well as introduce a new character that would make occasional appearances later on, though mostly in cameos. Now, we all know Pinkie Pie as the party animal of Equestria who displays some strange talents and abilities that can often be weird and leave the fourth wall shattered, but she's also known for being the pony who just wants to see her friends happy. This was shown quite nicely in Season 1, but this aspect of Pinkie Pie took center stage with Friend Indeed, where she tries to befriend a newcomer to Ponyville who actually makes that job for Pinkie pretty darn tough. That newcomer is Cranky Doodle Donkey, a grumpy donkey who comes off as cynical and gruff at first, but is revealed to have a sad backstory that makes him pretty sympathetic. Pinkie's efforts to befriend Cranky don't work out at first, and it leads to some pretty serious drama, but once she reunites Cranky with another donkey local named Matilda, whom Cranky met at the Grand Galloping Gala a long time ago, that's where things get much better for everyone. In this sequence, we learn that the two donkeys met at the gala, but after Matilda departed, Cranky embarked on a mission to find her. Unfortunately, since he couldn't find her anywhere, this journey took a tragic toll on the old fellow, and made him what he is today. Upon reuniting with Matilda, though, he smiles again and accepts Pinky's friendship as gratitude for helping reunite him with her. That's a sweet climax to the episode, but what makes that episode more worthy of this list is the moral of respecting friends who like being alone. Cranky is a nice representation of this character, and while he doesn't appear as often as other background characters, he still makes the occasional cameo, and he is a good character altogether. And for me, it's also awesome that he was voiced by Richard Newman, aka the same guy who voiced an awesome character from another show that I love so much, Rhinox from Beast Wars Transformers. I did not see that coming by any means, and given how much I love Beast Wars, it was such a pleasant surprise. Going back to MLP, one other major factor about this episode that most definitely made it special was that incredible song that Pinky sings near the beginning. Her Smile song instantly won its way into my heart, and to this day, I still find myself singing it whenever it comes on, especially at conventions. With its catchy feel and heartwarming aspect of Pinky wanting to spread joy to everyone around her, it's such a sweet music number that made me grow to love her so much more than I already have. Thank you, Pinkie Pie, for making us smile over the years. You truly are a worthwhile friend. Number 8. The Last Roundup. And here we have an episode that this time around focuses on Applejack, my second favorite of the main 6. And here, it's in a way that displays her stubbornness in a justifiable way, as well as show how much she values honesty. After leaving Ponyville to compete in the Equestria Rodeo competition in Canterlot, she does not return on her scheduled date, and after receiving a letter from her, Twilight and her friends go out to find her and see if she's okay. Eventually, they find her in a town called Dodge Junction, where for some reason, she started working for Cherry Jubilee on a cherry orchard. With Applejack refusing to explain why, her friends grow suspicious, and this conflict escalates as the episode progresses, where Applejack's stubbornness causes problems that only make things worse, not just for her, but for her friends too. It especially gets scary, yet at the same time kind of funny, when Pinkie Pie thinks Applejack broke one of her pinky promises to tell them what's going on, and therefore she goes berserk. However, after a crazy chase around town, it's ultimately revealed that Applejack did not win any gold medals or prize money at the rodeo. And Applejack explains that because of this, she went to Dodge Junction to earn some money so that the town hall roof in Ponyville could get fixed, just like she promised. This leads to a heartwarming ending where Twilight and the others assure Applejack that she's not a failure because of not winning any money, and that they'll find other alternatives to fixing the roof. This helps Applejack look past her guilt and return home with her friends, where she's greeted to a warm embrace from her family. This conflict and moral of not running away from your problems actually reminded me of Simba's conflict in The Lion King in a way, which was really nice. And before you ask, let's talk about something else this episode was famous for. Near the beginning of the episode, there's a sequence that involves the characterization of background/fan favorite character, Derpy Hooves, or Muffins as she's often called on the wiki. All controversy aside, this little moment showed that the writers are very well aware of the fans, which was very nice to see. Plus, I always found Derpy to be very adorable and fun. Definitely far from unlikable, that's a given. Number 7. Family Appreciation Day. Episodes in cartoons that portray the subject of family are some of the sweetest episodes I've seen throughout my life, and MLP is certainly no exception. This cartoon delivers some sweet episodes related to family from time to time, and in Season 2, one episode that definitely helps in that cause is Family Appreciation Day. This one focuses on Applejack's little sister, Apple Bloom, and her relationship with her grandmother, Granny Smith. After getting worries that Granny will embarrass her in front of her class on the school's Family Appreciation Day, oh fourth wall, why do you get so broken all the time? Apple Bloom tries numerous attempts, with Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo's help, to prevent her from coming to her school on that day, each one unfortunately failing badly. Applejack and Big Mac are unable to come instead since they're busy with the Zap Apple harvest, so this causes Apple Bloom some distress. But when Granny does come to the school for the event, she surprises everyone, Apple Bloom included, by explaining how she helped establish Ponyville way back in the day, and how she helped in harvesting Zap Apple Jam too. This part of the episode strongly brings out the importance of never underestimating your elders. They can be very wise and full of knowledge that can prove very fascinating. As someone who grew up idolizing my grandparents, that is a belief that I strongly hold on to every day. In fact, Granny Smith is one of the best things about this episode altogether, especially when she's interacting with Apple Bloom in a positive light, whether it be them jumping over the watering cans while singing the alphabet, or when Apple Bloom realizes how special Granny really is to her. Definitely an adorable episode to check out. Guaranteed. Number 6. Hurricane Fluttershy. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Fluttershy is my favorite of the main 6 because of how much I find in common with her. Episodes that feature character development for her are among my favorites, and while the other Season 2 episode, Putting Your Hoof Down, did not execute Fluttershy's attempt at being assertive well enough, Hurricane Fluttershy made up for that by featuring her in a conflict that's relatable, emotional, and given what happens during the episode, well worth the satisfaction of seeing it get conquered in the end. For this episode, Rainbow Dash enlists the help of all of Ponyville's Pegasi to help create a tornado strong enough to get water up to Cloudsdale. This causes much trouble for Fluttershy because she gets reminders of a tragic time during her fillyhood where she was mocked by her peers for her problems in flying. Fluttershy's conflict here is related to performance anxiety, and as someone who also deals with anxiety from time to time, it really makes me feel so sorry for her when she's in one of her low points. But luckily for her, Rainbow Dash, whom prior to this episode was the most critical of Fluttershy's shyness, is portrayed as a supportive friend who tries to convince her that she's capable of helping out, no matter how well she does. This is something I actually love seeing, Rainbow Dash interacting with Fluttershy in a positive light. This is seen in later episodes too, and it shows that their friendship is developing wonderfully. In the climax, this support is well fulfilled when Fluttershy's contribution in creating the tornado succeeds in helping get the water up to Cloudsdale and earns her the much-earned praise from her fellow Pegasi. All in all, it's an emotional episode that does a great job in making you want to see a character succeed in the end. You did very well, Fluttershy. I'm very proud of you. Keep up the good work. Oh, and let's not forget this episode marked the debut of that hilarious hunk of muscle known as bulk biceps. Yeah! Number 5. Luna Eclipsed. One of the minor problems that I had with Season 1 was the lack of appearances of Princess Luna. In that season, she only appeared in the premiere, where she was portrayed as Nightmare Moon before getting reverted back to Luna thanks to the main 6's heroic use of the elements of harmony. And after that, she got an emotional reunion with Celestia, but that was it. She didn't appear in the later episodes of that season, which honestly was a crying shame. But come Season 2, this would get quickly remedied, for in Luna Eclipsed, Luna would make a glorious return with a beautifully updated appearance and an episode portraying her in a very sympathetic light. On Nightmare Night, Equestria's version of Halloween, Twilight and Spike meet Princess Luna as she comes to Ponyville in an attempt to get back in touch with modern society. This unfortunately fails due to her frightening demeanor and loud tendencies scaring everyone around her. Twilight is the only one not terrified of Luna, and instead tries to help her become friends with the Ponyville residents. This results in some pretty memorable sequences, like with Luna trying to seek advice on speaking softly from Fluttershy, and Luna getting a chance to play some of the event games. Unfortunately, this does not go easy for her at all, especially with Pinkie Pie constantly assuming she's doing something bad to one of her friends. Like how she thought Luna stole a terrified Fluttershy's voice when all she was doing was hugging her, or when she thought Luna was eating Pipsqueak when all she was doing was saving him from drowning in one of the apple tubs. This eventually pushes Luna over the edge, and she furiously declares Nightmare Night cancelled for good. This part really drives home how sad it is to see Luna get treated like this. But a resolution comes when Pinky reveals that she always knew Luna was no longer evil, and instead said that part of Nightmare Night's fun is getting scared, similar to how we celebrate Halloween today. This gives Twilight the plan to have Luna scare a group of fillies, which works, and despite Luna's worries, the fillies are not offended at all, and Luna finally becomes accepted by the ponies, making her re-establish Nightmare Night as a fun holiday, as well as making Pipsqueak declare her as his favorite princess. Luna's portrayal in this episode is the strongest aspect here, and it really helped flesh her out so much more. Now I know Luna is quite the popular princess on the show, and while I'm quite sure she did have her fair share of fans before this episode, I have little to no doubt that after this, her popularity skyrocketed. I certainly love Princess Luna as one of my favorite characters in the show, and I'm happy she got many more appearances in later seasons. And yeah, the fun really has been doubled as a result. Number 4, Lesson 0. Oh golly, this episode. Dear Lord. Now, I remember this episode as the second one from Season 2 I remember seeing, and like Best Night Ever and Party of One, and all the other first Season 1 episodes, this one definitely left the impact on me. Though when I say that, it's more or less an understatement, because with what this episode offered, it certainly— Whoa! Whoa! No, 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 no! No, 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 no! Oh, man. Anyways, this episode features Twilight realizing she hasn't sent a letter to Princess Celestia in a week. She initially freaks out and frantically worries of what Celestia will do to her, such as send her back to what I'm assuming is dreadful, Magic Kindergarten. Man, she really is such a worrywart, isn't she? To prevent any potential punishment, Twilight goes around town, trying to find a friendship problem, but it doesn't work out, and only gets worse when Twilight's friends, all having gathered for a picnic, believe there's nothing to worry about and that Twilight's panicking over nothing. What follows is a sequence where Twilight essentially has a mental breakdown, and like what happened with Pinkie Pie in Party of One, this breakdown is creepy as hell. I mean, look at her! She has that insane-looking grin on her face and that messed-up mane. It's so freaking unnerving. From the way she speaks, to the way she moves, and especially when she approaches the CMC in her attempt to create a friendship problem that she'll solve. I don't know what was going on through the creators' heads, but I can only assume that the animators had a lot of fun drawing her, and I'm just going to guess that Tara Strong had a blast recording her lines in this scene. But dear lord, is she creepy in here or what? And when I say create a friendship problem that she'll solve, what I mean is she casts this Want It Need It spell on the CMC to get them to fight over one of her dolls. Unfortunately for Twilight, this messed up attempt to solve her conflict backfires horribly when everyone in Ponyville, minus her friends, gets affected by the spell too. And talk about bad timing, because once virtually everyone in town is going nuts, the sun finally sets, making all that Twilight did completely fruitless. It's a crazy scene, and again! God, that grin on her face! Ugh. But yeah, you get the point. It's crazy, but at the same time, it's all for naught, and it makes you feel really bad for Twilight. I mean, she was only trying to complete an assignment on time, but as Celestia says at the end of the episode, she didn't need a letter each week to know that Twilight was a great student. Speaking of Celestia, she comes in after the sun sets to undo Twilight's spell, before firmly ordering Twilight to meet her in the library. This was one of the first reminders I got to never ever ever make Celestia angry. She may have a wise and easygoing personality, but as they say on tvtropes.org, beware the nice ones. And in the end, it's not only Twilight that learns something, but also her friends, who instantly jump to Twilight's defense and express how they ignored her worries. Celestia forgives Twilight and the others under the condition that they all send her letters about friendship when they learn them. This trend of sending letters to Celestia was a very nice touch, and since we were already familiar with it in Season 1, this episode was a nice way of expanding on it. It's true that this trend doesn't happen much, if at all, in recent seasons, but it was a nice element brought in regardless. But seriously though, Twilight, Don't ever do that again! Jeez, one episode of you going psychotic like that was enough for me. Oh wait, I think I spoke too soon. Oh no! Good lord, Number 3. Sister Hooves Social. Like Family Appreciation Day, this is an episode that brings the subject of family into the spotlight. Only in this case, it's about sisterhood, though it could also apply to brotherhood too. Also, like Family Appreciation Day, it's a heartwarming episode that not only delivered a great message, but further fleshed out a relationship between two characters. It also served as a catalyst for the improvement on the relationship between Rarity and her little sister, Sweetie Belle. The episode features Rarity having to look after Sweetie Belle for quite some time while their parents are on vacation. Once the two sisters are left together, their relationship gets strained as the episode progresses. From Rarity's methods of going through routines her own way, and Sweetie Belle attempting to impress or help her sister, only for Rarity to get furious in some way, things get pretty serious between the two. The straw that breaks the camel's back eventually comes when Sweetie Belle finds out from Apple Bloom that a sister competition known as the Sisterhood Social is coming soon. Oh, come on, we just fixed the fourth wall. Do you really want the fourth wall's medical bills to skyrocket or what? Anyways, Rarity refuses to partake in the quote-unquote uncouth event when Sweetie Belle talks to her about it, and this leads to a pretty serious argument between the two, where they basically disown each other, which is a very hard scene to watch. Luckily, things get better as the episode goes on. Rarity slowly but surely comes to miss Sweetie Belle, and despite assuring herself that she's better off without her, she finally cracks when she sees a drawing that Sweetie Belle made of the two sisters in a heart shaped out of blue diamonds. It's this emotional scene where Rarity finally swallows her pride and regrets what she did. Finding Sweetie Belle at Sweet Apple Acres with Applejack and Apple Bloom, Rarity attempts to reconcile with Sweetie Belle, only for Sweetie Belle, having spent the whole day with Applejack and Apple Bloom, to reject the attempt and declare Applejack as her new big sister. The Apple duo, however, offer a solution that could fix everything, which involves Rarity learning what it truly means to be a good sister, as well as go out of her comfort zone in order to fix everything. On the day of the event, Rarity secretly goes through the Sister Hoof race with Sweetie Belle after trading places with Applejack at the first mud hole. And when Sweetie Belle realizes this once the race ends, she finally reconciles with Rarity, and the relationship between the two grows much stronger than it was before. That is simply adorable to see, and it helps make the development between the two the strongest aspect here, as well as the starting point to a better relationship. Huge kudos to the writers for this. Oh, and it was also adorable seeing Applejack and Apple Bloom interact and have fun together while they were doing their chores on Sweet Apple Acres. Number 2. The Return of Harmony. Now, Season 1's premiere, Friendship is Magic, was great for introducing the setting, characters, and concepts to the audience, and offering an adventure story that helped in getting them invested in the show and what was going to happen next. When Season 2 arrived, what was it that occurred? A season premiere that took everything from Season 1's beginning and cranked it up to whole new levels. The story, the intensity, the emotional drama, everything about this beginning felt awesome. But one major factor that helped contribute to the episode was the villain introduced. Discord, the Lord of Chaos and Disharmony. While Nightmare Moon was established as a foe who vowed to shroud Equestria in eternal night, Discord was much more different. Rather than shrouded in darkness, he vowed to shroud the kingdom in chaos and madness. With the magic capable of doing so, this made him a powerful and dangerous adversary to the main six. However, he's also presented as being very funny and wacky with what he does. In fact, one might say that he's actually a sick, twisted version of the genie from Disney's Aladdin. It further helped that he was voiced by Q from Star Trek, aka John Delancey. That guy was the perfect choice to voice Discord, and I'm happy he stayed to voice the character in later appearances. While Discord may have changed over the course of the show, he most certainly made quite the debut here. Anyways, like I said, Return of Harmony took everything from Season 1's beginning and upgraded it with a story that involves Discord returning after a 1,000-year state of being frozen in stone. As he begins his reign of chaos, Celestia enlists Twilight and her friends to find the elements of harmony and use them to defeat the Draconiquus, like what she and Luna did 1,000 years ago when they were in control of the elements. Unfortunately, Discord is already one step ahead, and while the ponies are searching through one of Canterlot's hedge mazes, deprived of their horns and wings in the Unicorns and Pegasi cases, one by one they are in a sense mind-raped by Discord as he fools them all into turning into their opposite selves. Twilight is the only one not affected yet, and as Discord goes on to celebrate in his chaotic world, Twilight manages to find the elements, but their first attempt at taking down Discord fails. This is where things get really sad, for Twilight nearly gives up hope. But upon seeing all the letters that she sent to Celestia the past season getting sent back to her, she regains the confidence she needs to turn all her friends back into their true selves. And together, they face Discord one last time and finally use the elements of harmony to turn the Draconiquus into stone once again, ending his reign of chaos and saving Equestria. With all that said, it's easy to see why this episode made it to the list. Action, drama, intensity, adventure, all of this which made Season 1's premiere great came together and delivered a crazy yet epic start to what I consider one of the show's best seasons. It was like the Season 1 premiere on crack in a sense. And like I said, Discord helped make Return of Harmony as awesome as it was. And while I personally prefer him as a reformed ally in later seasons, sorry for the mild spoiler alert if you haven't seen the show yet, he was still an awesome villain here, and part of me actually thinks that this episode helped more people get into the show. God bless you, Lauren Foss, John Delancey, and everyone else who brought us this episode. A truly great start to the season, and the reason why we got the other entries on this list, including number 1. Before we get there though, I'd like to give some honorable mentions to some episodes that I could not leave in the dark. The first honorable mention I would like to bring up is the mysterious mare duel. Now, this episode, I will admit, isn't really popular, and even I have mixed feelings about it nowadays. Rainbow Dash gets carried away with her heroic ego, frequently gloats about saving other ponies from bad predicaments, eventually meets competition when a new hero, dubbed the Mysterious Mare Duel, appears to outshine Rainbow Dash at every turn, and by the end it turns out to be the rest of the main 6, all playing different roles throughout the episode, all of whom agreed to give Rainbow Dash a taste of her own medicine, and the lesson about not bragging too much. Yeah, this is not a very popular episode. So why is this episode an honorable mention? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. This episode, believe it or not, was the very first episode of MLP that I ever saw. That's right, guys, before the main 6's attempts to make the Grand Galloping Gala the best night ever, before Pinkie Pie's meltdown in Party of One, before Twilight going psychotic in Lesson 0, and before Discord's fabulous debut in Season 2's premiere, it all started with the Mysterious Mare Duel. I remember sitting in one of the rooms at my high school with a couple of other students during lunch break and seeing what was in store. The result was an experience that introduced me to a show with nice and colorful animation, intriguing characters, and a lot of other things that got me wanting to come back and see more. So that's how it all started for me. It may be a weak episode, but had it not been for it, I wouldn't have been as into the show as I am now. So yeah, that's why Mysterious Mare Duel is an honorable mention on this list. But I have a second honorable mention that I'd like to point out as well. Sweet and Elite. This one is a rarity episode, and I think this one's better executed than Mysterious Mare Duel. Rarity's visiting Canterlot in this story, and during her attempts to fit in with some of the upper-class ponies, all while trying not to acknowledge much of her Ponyville heritage in front of them, some of whom she idolizes, like Fancy Pants to be precise, she eventually learns the important lesson of remembering and sticking with her hometown heritage, no matter what others may think. Looking back on this episode, I felt this was a worthy one to be acknowledged in some form of capacity on this list, even if it did get knocked back by some competition. Add in Rarity's song becoming popular, aka one of my favorite songs in the show, and sung beautifully by Kazumi Evans, the singing voice for Rarity, and you've got yourself an episode that I think was worthy of being given an honorable mention. It was also nice to see Fancy Pants, one of Canterlot's most influential locals, be presented as an amicable fellow towards Twilight and the others when they came to Canterlot near the end. And those are the 2 honorable mentions I wanted to give. But now that we've covered those, as well as the other episodes that have made Season 2 a worthy experience, it's time for the moment you've been waiting for. You know what? Nah. Let's not do that. Let's just cut to the chase. Oh yeah, that's better. Anyways, the number 1 best episode from Season 2 is... Canterlot Wedding. Now, while Return of Harmony was great for starting the season with a bang, Canterlot Wedding did more or less the same thing, only in this case, bring the season to a close. Like Return of Harmony, it had a lot of action, intensity, some sad emotional drama, and it introduced audiences to new characters whom would make occasional appearances later on. Unlike Return of Harmony, however, it also had some amazing songs that have stood a test of time and are some fan favorites. And some of the drama some of the characters go through is much more severe and tragic. All this put together truly helped this 2-parter finale become a huge hit. The premise here is that Twilight is sent a message from Canterlot saying she and her friends have been invited to a big wedding at the castle between Princess Miyamori Cadenza and Twilight's big brother, Shining Armor. This comes as an immense shock for Twilight, since she was never told about this, before she reminisces over the memories she and her brother had before being sent to Ponyville. When I first found out that Twilight had a brother, I was pretty surprised by this revelation, especially since this was revealed after many episodes, some of which filled up an entire season predating this. But it didn't take long for me to get accustomed to the fact, and Shining Armor turned out to be a fun character regardless. Anyways, once they reach Canterlot, Shining Armor explains everything to Twilight and why he didn't tell her sooner, as there is a suspected threat trying to invade Canterlot, which explains the city's defenses being upgraded, like the protective barrier that everyone passed through when arriving. And since he's the captain of the Royal Guard, Shining Armor didn't get a chance to say anything sooner. He also explains that Princess Miyamori Cadenza isn't some random princess on the block, but instead Twilight's old foal-sitter when she was young, Princess Cadance. This initially makes Twilight very happy, as she has a lot of great memories with Cadance from when she was younger, and she gladly accepts the role of being Shining Armor's best mare. But when Cadance shows up and displays odd behavior, Twilight grows very suspicious, since these mannerisms from Cadance are all nothing of what she remembered from their childhood together. This suspicion is too strong for Twilight to ignore, but when she finally accuses Cadance of being up to no good, that's where things get way too upsetting and sad, so much more so than anything we've seen beforehand. Twilight finds herself chastised and abandoned by her disappointed brother, friends, and even Celestia, leaving her to herself to lament the losses that have just hit her like a freight train of emotion. Seeing Twilight in this situation is just so tragic. I mean, seriously, the poor thing was just abandoned by everyone whom she had a close bond with, all because she had a feeling something was wrong. And to make matters worse, shortly after this, Cadance comes back to Twilight while she's alone. But as it seems she's going to comfort and forgive her, she suddenly gives an evil grin as she sends Twilight deep underground with a gulf of magic, just as Part 1 ends. For the longest time, I considered this the saddest moment in MLP history. At least until the 2017 movie came out and gave us something more heartbreaking, but that's a discussion for another time. Moving on to Part 2, it picks up right where Part 1 left off. Twilight finds herself trapped underground in the Canterlot Caves, and Cadance appears in the crystal walls to gloat and mock Twilight over her failed attempt at exposing her. This is a really dire start to the episode, and given what happened at the end of Part 1, it's truly a dark moment. But a glimmer of hope arrives when Cadance suddenly appears in the caves and in the flesh, only this time beat up, exhausted, and pretty scared. Twilight initially thinks this is who sent her into the caves in the first place, but when Twilight hears this Cadance recite a rhyme from when the two of them were fillies, she sees that this is the real Cadance who was her foal-sitter. and the one whom Shining Armor was planning to marry. All suspicions thrown out the window, and sharing a warm embrace, the two team up to find a way out of the caves in a sequence that really makes you want to see them get out and stop the imposter. Once again, given what happened at the end of part 1, and also adding in the badass villain song This Day aria, you've got yourself a sequence that's very dramatic, a bit heart-pounding, and makes you want to root for the heroes. Fortunately, they managed to get to the wedding just in time to expose the fraud, but this is where the danger really starts to shake up. Now exposed, the imposter reveals herself as well as her true form, Queen Chrysalis, the Queen of the Changelings. When I first saw this monstrosity, I was in complete shock, for this was a villain who was intimidating in appearance, completely evil in a way that's far darker than anything Discord had to offer, absolutely sadistic, and power-hungry. This villain meant serious business, and given how she manipulated everyone to go against Twilight at the end of part 1, it made me grow a disdain for this creep. It certainly didn't help either that she was even able to overpower Celestia with all the magic she absorbed from Shining Armor in part 1. Though, to be fair, even Chrysalis was pretty surprised by this. Anyways, what follows next is an action sequence where Twilight and her friends rush to get the elements of harmony, but when this happens, the security barrier around Canterlot is destroyed, and the rest of the changelings invade the city, causing chaos and destruction everywhere. This leads to a big battle between the main six and this army, which is a difficult one for our heroes since the changelings have the ability to transform into them, and while the main six manage to beat one wave of these monsters, they are eventually outnumbered, captured, and brought back to Chrysalis. This is a bad situation for our heroes, and Chrysalis rubs in their trouble by mocking everyone for not suspecting that something was wrong beforehand. Fortunately, as things are looking bleak, the day is saved when Cadence frees Shining Armor from Chrysalis' spell, and together with their love, they create a huge blast of magic that sends Chrysalis and the whole Changeling army out of Canterlot in an almost Team Rocket-like way. I always feel a sense of relief when Chrysalis and those Changelings are defeated, and sent flying off to who knows where. With the danger now past, everyone, Twilight and Cadence included, prepares for the real wedding this time. And Shining Armor allows Twilight to be his best mare again, showing that they've reconciled. Cadence and Shining Armor are married at last, Twilight is commended by Celestia for trusting her instincts, all relationships and friendships are repaired and mended, and everything's all happy and said and done. I do wish Luna was more involved in the conflict though, but that's just a minor nitpick. With all the dancing, music, and happiness from the reception party, it's a great way of showing that the worst is over, and it did a great job of capping off not just the episode, but the whole season in general. Canterlot Wedding was awesome with all it had to offer. With its great story, strong emotional drama, great new characters, and sense of urgency and action, it has long stood a test of time in this show's run. And that is why I proudly proclaim it as my favorite Season 2 episode of all time. Man, what a season this was. It was a big improvement over Season 1, had many wonderful surprises, new characters that have left a strong impact, great songs that have found their way into the hearts of many bronies, myself included, and just seemed like a fantastic adventure in general. With this top 10 list done, you can be sure I will carry on with a list of top 10 Season 3 episodes at some point. But for the time being though, I'd like to thank everyone for watching this video and hope you enjoyed what I had to offer today. Until next time, this is KGrove94, signing off. Take care, guys. Hi, girls! Oh, come on! Why?